Now, if that does sound ruthless, well, often ruthlessness is what keeps you alive in those kind of situations.
What's it really like to work undercover? How do you approach each day knowing that your safety depends upon living a lie? The recently launched Nail Bomber Manhunt tells the true story of how an undercover agent infiltrated the BNP to help catch a far-right extremist responsible for a series of attacks. And with that in mind, we spoke to somebody else who has lived undercover. Neil Woods is a former police officer who spent 13 years infiltrating some of Britain's most dangerous drug-dealing gangs. In this interview, you'll hear about what it's really like to work undercover. Not just the work itself, but the grueling day-to-day reality of pretending to be a different person.
The kind of undercover work that I did, I couldn't tell anybody, and it was made very clear to me. You see, I investigated drugs offences, and that's where corruption comes from the illicit drugs markets. You can imagine how careful I had to be at home. It was made clear to me constantly and right from the outset that I cannot tell anybody because there are too many ears. So that made it quite a lonely place to be. I couldn't tell my family or friends what I was doing. Well, in preparing yourself mentally to work undercover, you have to remember that you're not an actor. And if you try and act a role when you are undercover, then you will fail. So you have to be a different version of yourself. And in so doing, you have to understand the kind of environment in which you are going. As an undercover officer, you are first and foremost manipulative. You can listen to people's problems, the things that drive them, the things that move them, or the things that have hurt them. Have to use whatever information you can get about people to manipulate them and essentially get them to do what you want. Now, if that does sound ruthless, well, often ruthlessness is what keeps you alive in those kind of situations. Did I make friends with people? They certainly believed I was a friend. They believed I was a good friend. From my point of view, obviously, I had a different perspective. But that's not to say I didn't learn to like people, but essentially I was always intending to hurt them right from the outset. So that changes really what friendship can be. In terms of practical preparation for undercover work, it's a matter of understanding one's role, but also at the start of the day, checking oneself to know that you appear correct. Even simple things like you don't have something stupid in your pocket that could betray you if you were searched. There are many moments, particularly at the beginning of an operation, where people are suspicious of you. You know, where have you come from? Why have I not met you before? Have you just landed from another planet? Well, you know, you need to have all of the answers ready, but then you have this peculiar situation where you don't spoon feed someone your background, your legend. There's nothing more suspicious than suddenly arriving in a group of people and you're keen to tell everyone where you're from and why you're there. Any legend has to be extracted from you with great resistance. Am I the kind of person who can deal with stress calmly? Well, I used to be, yes, I did. And I remember one of the first times that I almost died working undercover, and secret camera had been found, and it was quite clear to these very dangerous dealers that I wasn't what I appeared to be. And they chased me in a car trying to kill me with this car. And I remember thinking that day, I feel great. I do. I feel great. I feel on top of the world. And I remember feeling quite smug and pleased with myself, thinking to myself that, wow, I'm one of those people. I'm one of these people who can deal with stuff like that. I can still do my job. I can record my evidence. I can think clearly. But it can be an illusion, this supposed tolerance to stress, because as the years went on, it got more and more difficult, and the strain on my body became more obvious. I had all sorts of health difficulties feeling of exhaustion, but I just carried on doing the work over and over. I am diagnosed with chronic PTSD. So whereas I believe, for the most part, appear calm a lot of the time, I have moments of the most extreme anxiety and profound guilt. And that is something that I have to manage because it's not going to go away. I have had extraordinary moments of guilt during my time working undercover, particularly at the conclusion of operations where vulnerable people that I've manipulated have got caught up in the net, and essentially more harm has been caused to them. One person who was a problematic heroin user, he needed help. But what I did to him is manipulate him to a point where he thought I was his one friend in the world, the one person that he could talk to. And my betrayal from his point of view, my betrayal of him was the final straw. And when he was in police custody, he became suicidal. And he had to be on minute-to-minute watch to make sure that he didn't succeed in killing himself. Now that's harm I've caused to him. That's harm I caused. And I had to justify that to myself because from my point of view at that time, the end justified the means, which again is an incredibly ruthless way of looking at things. But my undercover work was around drug policy. And that's the reality of drugs policing. It's ruthless.
For another take on undercover work, remember to check out Nail Bomber Manhunt on Netflix UK and Ireland Now.